First contact gone wrong. The Relaxian battle fleet hung in the darkness of deep space, their bioorganic ships pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that served as both communication and display of force. Admiral Zextal stood on his command pod, multiple eyes scanning the sensor readings with growing irritation. Their routine patrol of the spiral arm had been interrupted by an anomaly. A single ship of unknown design crossing their territory. Classification of the vessel. Zextal's voice resonated through the ship's neural network. Unknown, High Commander, his sensor officer replied, tendrils writhing in confusion. It bears no resemblance to any known species design. Energy signatures are minimal, suggesting primitive technology. However, the officer paused, mandibles clicking in uncertainty. Speak freely. The readings don't make sense. The ship appears to absorb our scanning beams rather than reflect them. I've never seen anything like it. Aboard the HS Chimera, Captain Maya Rodriguez watched the alien fleet with calculated interest. Her ship, the latest achievement of human stealth technology, was designed to appear as nothing more than a simple merchant vessel. In reality, it was one of the most advanced warships ever created by humanity. They're scanning us again, Lieutenant Sarah Chen reported from her tactical station. Their bioships are using some kind of quantum-entangled sensor array. Very advanced stuff. Rodriguez nodded, a slight smile playing at her lips. And our absorption systems. Working perfectly, Captain. As far as they can tell, we're just a lost transport that wandered into their space. Though I must say, their attempts to scan us are getting more aggressive. The captain straightened in her chair as a transmission cut through their comm systems. The alien language was harsh and clicking, but their AI translated it instantly. Unidentified vessel, you have entered Relaxian space. Your primitive design suggests you are unaware of proper protocol. Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded for inspection. Resistance will result in immediate destruction. Rodriguez exchanged glances with her first officer, Commander James Harrison. Typical, she muttered. They always assume technological simplicity equals weakness. Status of our defensive systems. All countermeasures ready but dormant, Harrison replied. They won't detect anything unless we power them up. Rodriguez opened a channel to respond. This is Captain Rodriguez of the human vessel Chimera. We are on a peaceful trading mission and request safe passage under the Galactic Commons Treaty. The response was immediate and dismissive. Your species is unknown to us. Your understanding of galactic law is irrelevant. You will submit to inspection or be destroyed. You have one standard cycle to comply. The Relaxian ships began to move into an attack formation, their bioorganic hulls shifting and morphing to reveal weapon ports. The sight would have been terrifying to most species. The Relaxians had conquered dozens of worlds with their superior biotechnology. They're charging weapons, Chen reported calmly. Fascinating. They're using some kind of quantum-entangled plasma. Very efficient. Very deadly. Rodriguez settled back in her command chair. Well then, let's show them why humanity learned early on not to judge by appearances. Signal the engine room. Prepare for Protocol Omega. And Chen. Let's give them a proper introduction to human ingenuity. The Relaxian fleet moved closer, their ships forming a perfect sphere around the seemingly helpless human vessel. They had no way of knowing they were about to learn a valuable lesson about underestimating humanity. In the space between stars, a dance of deception and revelation was about to begin, and the Relaxians were about to discover why humans had survived and thrived in a hostile galaxy. Sometimes the most dangerous predator was the one that looked like prey. The art of deception. The Relaxian fleet's bioorganic weapons pulsed with deadly energy, ready to reduce the seemingly primitive human vessel to atoms. Admiral Zextal watched with smug satisfaction as his ships maintained their perfect spherical formation, a maneuver that had spelled doom for countless species before. Final warning, human vessel, he transmitted. Submit to inspection or face immediate destruction. Inside the Chimera, Captain Rodriguez initiated Protocol Omega. Throughout the ship, sophisticated systems hidden beneath layers of apparent simplicity began to wake. What looked like standard hull plating shifted at the molecular level, revealing networks of quantum circuitry that had remained dormant until now. "They're targeting our supposed engine core," Chen reported, her fingers dancing across her tactical display. "Their scanning patterns suggest they expect us to have basic fusion drives." Rodriguez smiled. "Let's show them something interesting. Deploy the quantum mirrors." The Chimera's outer hull seemed to ripple, thousands of microscopic surfaces adjusting to create a perfect reflective array. When the Relaxians fired their first volley of quantum-entangled plasma, expecting to tear through primitive shields, something extraordinary happened. The deadly energy beams struck the Chimera's hull and simply vanished. Not absorbed, not deflected, but redirected through quantum tunneling into a pocket dimension, where the ship's true power core waited hungrily. On the Relaxian command ship, sensor officers stared in disbelief at their readings. "Impossible," Zextal bellowed. "Where did our weapons fire go? Scan that vessel again." But before they could launch another attack, the Chimera began to change. Its seemingly basic hull flowered open like a deadly metallic bloom, revealing weapon systems that defied conventional physics. Rodriguez watched the alien ship's energy signatures spike in what she had learned to recognize as panic. "They're preparing to launch boarding pods," Harrison reported. "Bioorganic penetrators, designed to burn through hull plating." "Perfect," Rodriguez replied. "Deploy the nanite clouds." From concealed ports along the Chimera's hull, streams of microscopic robots poured forth, forming shifting curtains of silver mist in space. As the Relaxian boarding pods approached, the nanites swarmed around them, not to destroy but to analyze and adapt. "Fascinating," Chen murmured, studying her readings. "Their bioorganic technology is incredibly advanced. The nanites are having a field day studying it." The boarding pods reached the Chimera's hull and attempted to burn through, only to find their biological acid neutralized by nanites that had already adapted to their chemical composition. The pods hung helplessly in space, their occupants trapped inside. "Send them a message," Rodriguez ordered. "Let's see if they're ready to talk more diplomatically now." But before they could transmit, the Relaxian fleet began a new maneuver. Their ship's bioorganic hulls pulsed with patterns that hurt human eyes to look at, generating fields of twisted space-time between them. "They're trying to create a temporal cage around us," Harrison warned. "If they succeed, they could trap us in a bubble of slowed time." Rodriguez leaned forward in her chair. "Well then, let's show them why humanity learned to think in multiple dimensions. Initiate the quantum drive." The Chimera's true nature was about to be revealed, and the Relaxians were about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology. It was their ability to turn an enemy's strength against them. As space itself began to warp around them, the dance between predator and prey entered its next phase, and the question of who was which became increasingly unclear. Escalation. The quantum drive of the HSS Chimera engaged, and reality rippled. Where the Relaxians expected to trap a primitive vessel in their temporal cage, they instead found their carefully constructed space-time bubble shattering like glass. The human ship didn't just resist their trap. It turned the very fabric of space-time into a weapon. "Quantum drive performing at optimal levels," Harrison reported, his voice steady despite the reality-bending forces at work around them. "Their temporal cage is being redirected through our dimensional arrays." On his command pod, Admiral Zextal watched in horror as his fleet's most sophisticated containment strategy unraveled. The human vessel wasn't just countering their technology. It was absorbing their techniques, learning, adapting. His sensor officers' tendrils writhed in agitation as their readings defied all known physics. "Emergency transmission from High Command," his communication officer announced. "The Sovereign Hive has authorized deployment of the World Eater." Zextal's inner eyes widened. The World Eater was more than a weapon. It was the pinnacle of Relaxian bioorganic engineering, a living ship that devoured energy itself. Its deployment had only been authorized 3 times in their species' history. Aboard the Chimera, new alerts flashed across Chen's tactical display. Captain, detecting a massive subspace disturbance. Something big is coming through. Rodriguez studied the readings, her expression grim. Show me. The holographic display shifted, revealing a tear in space larger than their entire battlefield. Through it emerged a nightmare of biological engineering. A vessel that seemed to be composed of living darkness, its surface a writhing mass of tentacles and energy-absorbing organs. It dwarfed the Chimera, making even the Relaxian battleships look like toys in comparison. The World Eater, Chen breathed, her sensors struggling to analyze the monstrosity. It's not just absorbing energy, it's consuming probability itself. Every possible future where we escape is being systematically eliminated. Rodriguez stood from her command chair, watching as the massive bioship approached. They think they've backed us into a corner. Time to show them why humanity never puts all its eggs in one basket. Execute Protocol Lazarus. Throughout the Chimera, hidden systems began to activate. But these weren't weapons or shields. The ship's quantum processors began broadcasting on frequencies that shouldn't exist, sending signals through dimensional barriers that the Relaxians had never even theorized about. What are you doing? Zextal's transmission carried equal parts fury and fear. Your primitive vessel cannot hope to stand against the World Eater. Submit now, and we may spare your crew for study. Rodriguez allowed herself a small smile. Admiral, you've made a crucial mistake. You assumed we came here alone. Space twisted again, but this time it wasn't the Relaxians' doing. All around the battlefield, reality began to fold in on itself as quantum signals activated dormant gates that had been secretly seeded throughout this sector over the past decade. Through these dimensional doorways, ships began to emerge. Human vessels that made the Chimera look primitive by comparison. Admiral, Rodriguez transmitted, meet the rest of the first Explorer fleet. We've been mapping your space for years, preparing for this moment. The Chimera wasn't an intruder that wandered into your territory. We're the bait that drew out your ultimate weapon. The World Eater paused its advance, its biological sensors overwhelmed by the sudden appearance of dozens of human warships, each utilizing technologies that violated different laws of physics. The Relaxian fleet's perfect formation began to waver as their commanders faced, for the first time, the possibility that they weren't the predators in this encounter. Impossible, Zextal whispered. No species could have hidden such a fleet from our sensors. That's the problem with believing you're the most advanced species in the galaxy, Rodriguez replied. You never look for what you think cannot exist. Now, shall we discuss peaceful cooperation, or would you prefer a demonstration of why humanity learned to prepare for every possible scenario? The World Eater's surface rippled with patterns that reflected its commander's uncertainty. They had expected to crush a primitive species. Instead, they found themselves surrounded by a force that had outmaneuvered them on every level. In the space between moments, two civilizations stood on the brink of either devastating conflict or revolutionary cooperation. The next few minutes would determine which path they would take. Breaking point. The vastness of space around the confrontation had become a chessboard of quantum possibilities. The World Eater hung in the void, its massive bioorganic form pulsing with contained power, while the revealed human fleet maintained a defensive formation that seemed to shift between dimensions. Their World Eater is adapting, Chen reported, her fingers dancing across the tactical display. It's not just consuming energy anymore. It's learning from every scan, every analysis. The creature is evolving in real time. Rodriguez watched as the massive alien vessel's surface began to change, developing new organs and structures that mimicked aspects of human technology. This was the true danger of Relaxian bioengineering, not just its power, but its ability to adapt and evolve. High Commander, the World Eater's controlling consciousness transmitted directly to Zextal, its thoughts echoing through the neural network of every Relaxian ship. The humans, they are not what we assumed. Their technology, their strategies, They operate outside of conventional evolution. We cannot simply consume and adapt. They are different. Aboard his command pod, Zextal faced a decision that would define his species' future. The humans had outmaneuvered them strategically, but the World Eater remained the most powerful weapon in known space. Pride and survival instinct warred within his mind. "Captain Rodriguez," he transmitted, "you have proven your species cunning, but do not think you have won. The World Eater cannot be defeated. It will consume every strategy, every technology you possess. Even now, it grows stronger." "That's where you're wrong, Admiral," Rodriguez replied calmly. "We're not trying to defeat it. We're trying to communicate with it." Before Zextal could respond, the human fleet began a synchronized maneuver. Each ship activated what appeared to be a new form of quantum technology, but instead of attacking, they created a complex network of intersecting fields that surrounded both fleets. "What are you doing?" Zextal demanded. "Showing you what humanity learned during our own evolution," Rodriguez answered. "Sometimes the strongest position isn't the one with the most powerful weapons. Lieutenant Chen, initiate the bridge protocol." The quantum fields generated by the human ships began to resonate at frequencies that interfaced directly with the World Eater's bioorganic consciousness. But instead of attempting to control or destroy it, they established a dialogue. Through this quantum bridge, the World Eater experienced something it had never encountered before. A species willing to share knowledge freely, offering understanding instead of submission. The massive creature's surface rippled with new patterns as it processed this unprecedented approach. "Impossible," Zextal whispered as he watched the World Eater's reactions through their neural link. "You're teaching it. Your greatest weapon evolves by consuming," Rodriguez explained. "We evolved by sharing, by combining different perspectives and approaches. The World Eater doesn't need to consume knowledge to grow stronger. It can learn through cooperation." The space around them hummed with possibility as the World Eater's consciousness expanded in new directions. Its surface began to shift again, but this time not to develop weapons. Instead, it was creating new organs dedicated to communication and mutual understanding. "The creature is changing," Chen reported, wonder in her voice. "Its basic biological patterns are restructuring. It's not just mimicking our technology anymore. It's developing entirely new ways of processing information." The Relaxian fleet watched in amazement as their ultimate weapon, the apex of their evolutionary engineering, chose to evolve not through consumption and dominance, but through cooperation and shared growth. This changes everything, the World Eater's consciousness broadcasted to both fleets. There are other paths to advancement. The humans, they understand something we have missed in our pursuit of biological perfection. Rodriguez stood from her command chair, her expression both firm and compassionate. "Admiral Zextal, your species has mastered biological evolution. We've mastered technological evolution. Imagine what we could accomplish if we combined our knowledge instead of fighting over it." In the space between stars, two radically different approaches to advancement faced a crucial moment of choice. The World Eater, designed to consume and conquer, had discovered a new path to growth. Now it remained to be seen whether its creators could adapt as readily as their greatest creation, understanding. The star-filled void around the assembled fleets had become a laboratory of possibilities. The World Eater, once the supreme weapon of the Relaxian Empire, now served as a bridge between two civilizations that had evolved along radically different paths. Its massive form pulsed with new patterns of communication and understanding, each ripple representing an exchange of knowledge between species. Commander Harrison approached Captain Rodriguez's chair with a data tablet. "The World Eater's biological processors are integrating our quantum communication protocols at an unprecedented rate. It's not just learning our technology. It's developing entirely new theories of physics by combining our understanding with Relaxian biological principles." Rodriguez nodded, watching the massive creature's transformation through the Chimera's quantum sensors. "And Admiral Zextal?" Still processing the implications, Harrison replied with a slight smile. Having your species' greatest weapon choose cooperation over conquest tends to shake one's worldview. The Admiral's image appeared on their main communication screen, his multiple eyes showing signs of what humans had learned to recognize as deep thought. Captain Rodriguez, your species has demonstrated wisdom we did not expect to find in beings we considered primitive. The World Eater's choice cannot be ignored. Your weapon evolved beyond its original purpose, Rodriguez responded. Perhaps it's time for both our species to do the same. The World Eater's consciousness joined their conversation, its thoughts now crystal clear through the quantum bridge. The humans possess understanding that complements our own. Their technological evolution parallels our biological advancement. Together, we could achieve what neither species could alone. Throughout both fleets, crews watched in amazement as the World Eater began to demonstrate this potential. Its massive form now incorporated aspects of human quantum technology seamlessly into its biological systems, creating hybrid systems that defied conventional classification. Look at these readings. Shen marveled from her tactical station. It's developing quantum biological processors that operate on principles we never imagined. The efficiency is off the charts. Admiral Zextel's command pod moved closer to the Chimera, a gesture of trust that would have been unthinkable hours earlier. You could have attempted to destroy the World Eater. Instead, you chose to communicate. Why? Because humanity learned early in our development that the most powerful force in the universe isn't weapons or technology, Rodriguez explained. It's the ability to adapt, to learn from others, to grow beyond our original limitations. Your World Eater just proved that. The massive bioship pulsed with agreement, its surface now displaying patterns that combined Relaxian biological symmetry with human quantum mathematics. This is evolution, it broadcasted, not through consumption or conquest, but through understanding and cooperation. Both species have walked separate paths to advancement. Together, we can forge new paths entirely. Zextel's inner eyes shifted in what humans now recognize as their equivalent of a smile. Perhaps it is time for the Relaxian Empire to evolve as well. Captain Rodriguez, would your fleet be willing to escort us to your nearest diplomatic outpost? I believe there are many conversations our species need to have. Of course, Admiral, Rodriguez replied. Though I should warn you, human diplomatic stations can be quite interesting. We believe in hosting representatives from as many species as possible. You might find yourself sharing perspectives with beings you never expected to encounter. Good, the World Eater interjected, its consciousness now freely participating in their exchange. More perspectives mean more possibilities for growth. This is what I have learned from our contact, the true power of diversity in evolution. As the combined fleet prepared to depart, Rodriguez couldn't help but reflect on the irony of their encounter. The Relaxians had sought to prove their superiority through force, only to discover that their greatest weapon had learned what humanity had known all along. True strength comes not from dominating others, but from learning to grow together. Set course for Diplomatic Station Alpha, she ordered, watching as both human and Relaxian ships formed up around the World Eater. And send a message to Earth Command. First contact successful, bringing some very interesting new friends for dinner. The stars stretched around them as the fleet entered quantum space, carrying with them the promise of a future where different paths of evolution could intersect and combine in ways neither species had imagined possible. In the end, humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy wasn't their technology or their strategies, but their ability to turn potential enemies into partners in exploration and growth. Sometimes, the most powerful force in the universe wasn't the ability to destroy worlds, but the wisdom to build bridges between them instead. The end.